You all back to my YouTube channel, and in this lesson we'll be talking about radical equations. We are going to know how to solve radical equations. We are going to go through different past paper questions with clear explanation. And if you are new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe. So those that are doing A-levels, math related course, business studies, additional mathematics, this video will really help you in your course. So what is a radical equation? What is a radical equation? A radical equation is an equation in which the variable is under a radical. Is under a what? Is under a radical. This is what we get to mean. So each time you are talking about a radical equation, we are talking about an equation in which the variable is under a radical. So I want you to get this, and I want you to understand this clearly. What is a radical equation? This is an equation in which a variable is under a radical. This is what we get to mean. For example, so let's say, for example, we have expressions like root x is equal to 2. This is an example. You can have something like x plus 5 is equal to 6. It can be anything as long as a variable is under a what? Is under a root. You know what I mean by a variable? A letter. Whenever a letter is under a what? Is under a root, which is a square root. So is under a square root. We call it as a radical. So now, how do we solve radical equations? There are certain steps that you need to know. So let us look at the steps that we need to put into consideration, steps to follow. So we look at steps to do what? Steps to follow. So let us look at steps to follow. We look at certain steps that you need to follow in order to solve a radical equation. So what are some of the steps that you need to follow in order to solve a radical equation? Step number 1 is where you isolate. So just know that step number 1 is all about isolating the radical expression. Where you isolate the what? You isolate the radical expression. This is step number 1. You isolate the radical expression. This is what we need to do. So this is where you isolate the radical expression. Then step number 2. So I'm going to be brief so that I just give you the outline that you need to follow. I give you certain steps that you need to put into consideration. Step number 2 is where you square. You square what? You square both sides. So you need to square both sides of the equation. This is step number 2. So step number 2, you square both sides of the equation. Then step number 3. So I'm going to show you how you can solve this. Step number 3 is where you rearrange. You rearrange the equation. After rearranging and solve. So once you are done rearranging, you solve the resulting equation. You solve the resulting equation. Is where you get to solve the resulting equation. You solve the resulting equation. So these are steps that you need to do and understand. You solve now the resulting equation. Step number 4. This one is very simple. So step number 4 is where you check. Step number 4 is where you check all solutions. So you check all solutions for extraneous solutions. So you check all the solutions for extraneous solutions. This is the last step that you need to do. So these are the 4 things that you need to follow. These are the 4 things that you need to put into consideration whenever you want to solve radical equations. So I want you to know this, and I want you to understand this such that if they are to come in your exams, you'll be able to solve them, you'll be able to answer 1 or 2 questions under this part. So away from this now, let me now give you some, let us look at some examples, how questions get to come in an exam. So before we look at examples, let us revise this together. Step number 1, you do what? You isolate the radical equation. Step number 2, you square both sides of the equation. Step number 3, you rearrange and solve the resulting equation. Step number 4, you check all solutions for extraneous solutions. I'm going to show you how we do all these things. For now, I just want you to know these steps. Make sure that you know these steps by heart. You understand them, then you know how to go about these equations. So let us now look at an example. So with this now, let us look at an example. We look at an example. Let's say you are given an expression. So it is saying solve radical equations. Solve the radical equations. Solve the radical equations. This is how the question is. We are solving radical equations. So the first one that I want us to start with is this one, where we are given it is 2x minus 1 is equal to what? Is equal to x. You are given this equation to solve. How can you solve such an equation? What are some of the things that you need to put into consideration? What are some of the steps you need to do? I've just showed you some steps that you need to follow. So you check. The first one is, I said, you isolate. So you check, is this variable which is under this radical isolated? The question is yes, because it is just alone on this one side of the equation. So it is isolated. Step number 2, square both sides of the equation. So this is where you square both sides of the equation. So you do this, you square. Even here, you square. So when you square both sides of the equation, this square and this root, they are going to cancel out. What are you going to remain with? You are going to remain with 2x minus 1, which is equal to what? X squared. It is like that. From here now, as you can see, we are forming an equation. So I'm going to transfer all these numbers to this side, so that here we just remain with a 0. So we are having x squared. This is positive. When it goes this side, it becomes what? Negative 2x. This is negative. When it goes this side, it becomes positive 1, which is equal to what? Equal to 0. When you reach here, if you look at this, this is now an equation which is a quadratic equation. Then we know how to solve a quadratic equation. So how do we solve a quadratic equation? A quadratic equation, whenever you see a quadratic equation under this, just know that what you are dealing with, you normally use completing of the square method or factorization method. These are the 2 methods that should come to your mind. So if you don't know how to use these ones, I've done a video on that. You can check out for that video, then you learn through. Because if you are using the formula method or any other method, it will be very difficult, and you discover that you'll be wasting a lot of time on one question. So we need to use the factorization method. So factorization method, we need to find the product. I believe for us to reach at this level, we know how to find the product, where you say this one, the coefficient there is 1. 1 times 1, it is 1. What is your sum? What is your sum? You check for your sum. What is your sum? What is the sum? The sum is just this one, -2. Put -2 there. What are your factors? So factors means two numbers that you can multiply to get 1. And if you add those same numbers, you're going to get -2. So those are -1 and -1. If you multiply these, -1 times -1, you get +1. If you add -1 plus -1, you get -2. So since you've gotten these, -1, -1, as long as the coefficient is 1 here, what you need to do, just need to go direct. You say x, that one, minus 1. Those answers, then you say x minus 1, which is equal to 0, like that. So as you can see, there is x minus 1, x minus 1. We are just going to get one answer. So our one answer will be x is equal to what? 1. If you solve, this one goes aside. So x will be equal to what? X will be equal to 1. These are steps that you need to do. So x is equal to 1. Like this, the answer is just 1. So there is no need for us to check for extraneous solutions because the answer is definitely 1. So in this case, we found the answer to be 1. So this is how we solve this. Let us look at another example. Let us look at another example. So we look at another example. So how do we solve this? So let me put down another example here. So we go to question number 2. We are still learning how to solve this. So we go to question number 2. We go to question number 2. So I'm going to say B. So how is the question? The question is like this. This is how the question is. The question is like this. 2x minus 9 is equal to x minus 6. How can you solve such a radical equation? So you ask yourself, is it isolated? The answer is yes. It is what? It is isolated. Since it is isolated, what we need to do now is where we square both sides. So we square both sides. Here, this is a 9. So we do what? We square both sides like this. So if you square this side, this square and this root will be cancelled. What are we going to have? 2x minus 9 is equal to. So you are squaring this. What is your answer when you square this? So this means that this is repeating itself 2 times. So it is just the same as x minus 6, x minus 6. This is what it means. So how do we multiply this? I believe using this method of doing this, you are going to waste time. But if you know how to use the binomial theorem, you can just use the binomial theorem here so that things become easy and better for you. But if you know that method where you say x minus 6 minus 6, x minus 6, if you know this method, use it so that you just find your answer like this: x squared minus this 6x, this minus 6x, this positive 36, like this. You say x squared minus 12x plus 36. This is the answer that you've gotten. This is the longest cut that you can ever use in an exam. But if you know how to apply the binomial, you can just apply the binomial and make things very easy for you. So we've seen the answer that we have. So I'm going to put the answer there. The answer is what? X squared minus 12x, like this, plus 36. What was the third step? The third step, I said you rearrange. So rearranging is more like grouping of right terms. So we do what? We group right terms. So I'm going to throw all these this side. So I'm going to have x squared. I'm going to have x squared. This is what? This is negative 12. When this one comes this side, since it is negative 12, when this is x, so when this one comes this side, you are going to have negative 12x minus 2x, where we are going to have negative what? 14x. Then what do we have this side? We've got 36, positive 36. So when this negative 9 comes this side, it is going to be plus. So what do we say? 36 plus 9, it is 45. So we get what? 45, which is equal to 0. So I've just changed all these, put them this other side, then I solve the resulting equation. This is also a what? This is also a quadratic equation. So it's now time to solve this quadratic equation. I want to learn how to solve quadratic equations. We know. So that's the reason why I'm not wasting much time on this. You know how to solve a quadratic equation. That is a topic for another day if you don't know. But I believe for you to reach at this level, you need to know how to solve quadratic equations. So you may not be using the same method I'm using. You may be using a different method. So I say, what is my product? My product is 45. What is my sum? My sum is negative 14. What are the factors? What factors am I supposed to have? Two numbers that I can multiply to get 45. If I add them, I get negative 14. So these are the two numbers that I'm looking for. They are what? Negative 5 and negative 9. These are the two numbers. Multiply these, you are going to get 45. Add these, you are going to get negative 14. So this is what you need to know. This is what you need to get and understand. We need to make sure that we understand this. We need to make sure that we get this. So I want you to know this, and I want you to understand each and everything that I'm illustrating here. So you go direct now. I told you that if the coefficient is 1 here, you just go direct. You say x minus 5, those answers, and you say x minus 9 like this, which is equal to 0. So when you solve this, what is your answer when you solve this? So what you're going to have is that you're going to say x minus 5 is equal to 0, or x minus 9 is equal to 0. Where you are going to conclude and say x is equal to 5 or x is equal to 9. This is what we are going to do. So we've gotten two answers. So in this case now, we now need to do what? To check. We check. So we check for what? We check for extraneous solutions. We do what? We check now. So from here, you don't need to conclude that these are your answers. No, you need now to check for extraneous solutions. So let us check now. How can we check this? How can we check? So you get the way the equation was, the original equation, the way it was. So we just get it the way it was. The original equation, we just get it the way it is. So how is it? How is it? How is it? How is the equation? How is the equation? So the equation which we are having is this one. So you say the equation is what? The equation was like this. So here I'm checking for what? I'm checking for x is equal to 5. This is the first one I'm checking for. I check if the solutions are correct. So I'm going to say here 5. Where there was x, I put 5. So it was 2. There was x, so I'm going to put 5. I say minus 9 is equal to here I'm not going to say equals, I'm going to put a question mark because I don't know. Then here there was x minus 6. So I won't say x minus 6, I'll say 5 minus 6. So here what are we having under the root? We are going to have 4. This is 10. So 10 minus 9, it is 1. Root 1, then equal to, I put a question mark because I don't know. Here I get negative 1. So the solution here I'm going to get what? 1 is equal to, no, it is not equal to what? Negative 1. So this is not my answer. This is not my answer. This is not my answer. I check for the other one. X is equal to 9. So I say like this. Where there is x, I put 9. Like this, minus 9 is equal to, I put a question mark because I'm not sure. 9 minus 6. Here, what is 2 times 9? 18. 18 minus 9, it is 9. So I've got root 9 is equal to question mark. Then what is 9 minus 6? It is 3. So I put a 3 there. Then from here, what's the next thing that I'm supposed to do? The next thing that I'm supposed to do now is where I say here is what is the square root of 9? It is 3. Which is equal to what? Which is equal to 3. So 3 is equal to 3, which is what? Good, correct. So what is my answer now? This one that has proven true the statement or the equation. So this is the answer now. So I just say, after doing this, I now just say, therefore, the solution. So the solution, what is the solution? X is equal to 9. This is the answer. This is how you need to solve that. So this is how we get to solve those equations. These are procedures that you need to do. This is how you need to answer all the things or any equation that will come under this. These are procedures that you need to follow. These are some of the things that you need to put into consideration. So this is just radical equations. We are doing radical equations. I want to know if we are still together. So those that are under my online lessons, they can solve these equations. Let us try to solve these equations. We see the answer that we are getting. We see how we are managing these expressions. So I'm just going to give you 2 equations that I want you to solve. So just 2 equations for now. I see if we are moving together. So I see if we are moving together. We now see how to answer these equations. So these are the equations that I'm leaving for you. I want you to answer these equations and I want you to practice through these equations. So you can also make sure that you've liked the video so that it can attract a lot of views. So the first one that I'm going to give you is like this. So these are radical equations. This is 3x plus 4 is equal to x. I want you to solve this. The second one that I want you to try out is this one, which is x minus 1 is equal to x minus 3. These are the 2 equations that I want you to answer. So let's answer these equations. We see if we are getting the point. We see if we know how to go about these ones. So these are the questions that I want you to answer. These are the equations that I want you to get. So let's try these 2 equations. We see how we are going to answer them. Thank you so much. This is our lesson 1. We are yet to do lesson 2. Thank you so much. Those that could like to join us under our online tuitions, those that could like to join me, can contact me on this number, which is +26 0971 06 6747. You can contact me. This is my number. you can contact me on this number, then I'll be able to help you. This is plus 2609710667447. I'll be able to help you. If you have an assignment in mathematics, we do that. Thank you so much.